Hey everybody, welcome back. This is a viewer request. Talk about my star card epiphany. As I said in this video that I posted not long ago about all the why I quit tarot videos out there. I explained in that video that I couldn't sleep and I was laying in bed awake thinking about the star card and how there are in the Rider-Waite-Smith system that I know probably best, two streams of water. And it just got me thinking, and I realized something connecting it to the Toth system. I also have a Marseille here, so we're just going to connect those three main systems that I like to use. You let me know if you ever thought of this before. I have not checked all the books. I don't remember seeing this written down in a book, but it's just one of those theories, and I consider it an epiphany because I never really understood why there were two streams coming from the cups of the star card figure. And so, yeah, we're gonna just talk about all of that. So let's get into it. Confession, I started understanding the Rider-Waite-Smith system way better once I got into Toth. Once I read Crowley's Book of Toth and then all the other books, not all the other books, plenty of other books that go along with it, like Mirror of the Soul by Gert Ziegler that I have right here but in Dutch. Beginning of the sentence, damn it, why do I always do that? That is when I started understanding these images better, which is by A.E. Waite and Pamela Coleman Smith. Because I always identified as the person in the star card. Rider-Waite-Smith is my first system, right? So this is where I learned my first tarot meanings. And so a lot of it was, of course, book knowledge, but also a lot of it was just playing around with the cards and contemplating and thinking, well, what's the feeling I get when looking at this card, and pathworking and everything. Now, in the pathworking, I considered myself the star, meaning the star, of course, is this, right? But it's also this figure here. And it took me a while to actually get into Book of Toth to realize that who this person is, it actually is a goddess named Nuit, which in French means night, la nuit. So that definitely fits, and there's a lot of different depictions of her. A lot of it is in ancient Egyptian art. You can see her as the firmament. It's this dome of stars. That is who Nuit is. And it's sometimes called Nut also, or Nuit with an H, different ways of writing it. It's interesting how it actually kind of changes the approach of the reading once we realize this is not a human form. Or, I have to say this correctly, Crowley is giving away all the secrets, right? This is why everybody was mad at him, or one of the reasons. But in this deck, which is illustrated by Lady Frida Harris, we see the goddess Nuit as well, depicted quite differently, might I add, although Book of Toth is saying that this right here, this spiral-formed, very long-haired beauty, is goddess Nuit still in human form. So, see how this looks like a goddess? And this just looks like a naked young lady. So Rider-Waite-Smith, yet again, is more secretive than the Toth deck. Because right here, even though they say it's her in human form, looks like a goddess to me. Doesn't look human. Whereas here, yeah, that looks like a human lady. So now that we know that it's Nuit, the goddess, I feel I no longer really place myself in the card in the very same way. Of course, in any pathworking session, you can decide to be the goddess Nuit in human form or not. You can decide to astral project or astral travel and become the stars, the night sky. You can become the star, right? Or this is the big one out of all of them in the card. You can even become the pool of water in your pathworking session. You can even become the bird that is just about to take flight. I realize I haven't shown you the Marseille version yet. Here we go. All the same elements. Obviously, the Rider-Waite-Smith was based off of Marseille, which were, the decks before. Or it's actually based off of Solabusca. I think I said that right. But I never really delved into that deck, although I'm sure a lot of things become more clear once you know that deck as well. Anyway, my epiphany, just my thought, my idea, was about those two streams of water coming from these gourds that the lady is holding and giving back. Now, in this Marseille deck, she's giving back both streams to the water. And here later on, with, Golden Dawn type esoteric decks, she's giving one back to the water and the other back to the land, which, of course, water mixed with water just dilutes and becomes everything else. This is important. And then also this stream that falls into the earth, onto the land, becomes various smaller streams. Also important. I then thought of the card before the star, 16, the Tower, in which we have two people falling from the tower. Two people, two streams. Very long story short, although I'm nowhere near done, my epiphany was, again with the air quotes, right, because it's not that amazing, but it's all just a little puzzle and I'm just having fun here. These two people, up to this point, I always saw the two people in the Tower card or the House of God card as falling into the water. So even though it can be seen as this terrible thing that's happening, it's either way, it's a big change, it's a big shift, and the tower doesn't always have to be super negative, but it's our reaction to this big shift, this big paradigm shift, which comes as a surprise, and therefore it can be perceived more often than not as a type of loss, and there's a lot of destruction happening. These two people, they don't fall to their death. They never did in my mind, which is why it wasn't scary. Because once you go through the Arcanum 13, the death card, so-called death card, you know that even the card that's called death in these later decks doesn't actually mean death either, no physical death. Then when you see a scarier card even than that, the Tower card, you know it's not the end. Therefore, they don't fall to their death. They don't fall onto the cliffs. They fall into the water that's underneath the tower. And I always thought, well, even though you fall into this storm, you might not come out unscathed fully. You swim in that unconsciousness, which is often symbolized by water. And it's a part of death. It's like a sneak peek of death going into subconscious and unconscious territory. But once you find the quiet shore where the storm doesn't exist, right? This is the new shore. And you find new land. That's when you start building the tower once more. Except that this time it's healed and you start with a new, fresh perspective because you know what it is you need after this first sort of demise. I always thought of those two people somehow still being in human form, in a sense, even though I know the tarot is all about symbolism, but and then becoming this young lady. It's like a symbol for youth and starting over again, her being sky-clad or in the nude. It's this sort of rebirth yet again, which we also see in the sun card, etc. We see it a lot. There's a lot of change, transformation, rebirth in the tarot. But it's funny, my mind didn't go as far as, or my mind didn't go further than, well, we are humans depicted in these cards, and it's just another symbol for how I am in that stage of the tarot. It makes sense because Rider-Waite-Smith has a human in almost every card, or a human figure in almost every card. So it makes sense that learning the minor arcana from the Rider-Waite-Smith deck also means we think of the majors as humans, even though we know those are symbols for much bigger entities and energies and powers. Before I forget, now that we know the humans falling from the tower definitely do represent us, but they are no longer in human form. They are crystallized and taken apart in a way. They mix and blend with the water, which is where everybody comes from, or where everybody goes to at a certain point in their transformation, in their spiritual awakening. They don't only fall into the water, they become a part of the water because of that decrystallization or crystallization, that decomposition almost of the human form. You no longer have a body, and therefore you become crystals. It's almost like you fall apart and you turn into something else that's magical. And so in that water, in the cups of the Nuit card, of the star card, that is where she is emptying out the cups, one on the land and one over herself, or one in the water, and it's still the crystals. Now that we know that, it's easy to understand that we don't come back as the lady. We are actually the water that she is pouring out. Yeah. We have to start here with the Toth Tower card. This is the eye of Shiva, the eye of destruction, or an eye that destroyed. This is the mouth, and a lot of destruction happening here. Now, there's a lot of phallic symbolism in the Toth deck, right? Even more than in the Rider-Waite-Smith deck. I would say there isn't that much, actually. I mean, you see a tower, you might think phallus, but Toth deck, it was very deliberate. Even the Hermit looks like, yeah. And there's a lot of talk of things that have potential, so they are potent and fruitful. Therefore, it's a type of sperm that becomes something. There's also talk of, in this card at least, the type of or kind of wasted potential. Because again, the tower here is a phallus shape and therefore phallus energy. And the people falling out of this tower, those are these creatures right here. They are no longer in human form, but they come out of the tower, and therefore you could say it's wasted potential, if you know what I mean. It's like the sperm not finding the egg. So yeah, I make that up to wasted potential in a sense. Well, I find it so beautiful that these people are no longer in human form. That reminds us of something I already talked about. Now, in this artwork, it's more than one person. We see a lot of, or more than two people, sorry. We see a lot of different figures, rather, falling from the tower. They are destroyed themselves, not to their death, although different type of death, little death, like the potential that wasn't used or hasn't found its purpose or its goal, and they are torn apart. They are becoming crystals. I think almost it's like going back to where we all come from, kind of thing. We are all made of this type of stardust. That theory. The Toth deck is quite scientific, even though what I just said isn't really, because I don't know enough about it, but there's a lot of research in the Toth deck, that's for sure. Magical and scientific, and those two, honestly, they just blend together. So because they are crystals, it doesn't matter how many of them fall from the tower, because they are all, from now on, in this part of the journey, bodiless. They no longer have a body, which also reminds me of my own vision of the moon card. I was in this place at a certain point, and I felt everything, but I didn't have a body. And it's indescribable. But I really did experience this at a certain point in some type of, well, I cannot say it's anything else but a vision. I think vision is the best word, even though, as you know by now, I don't consider myself particularly skilled in psychic abilities necessarily. There's of course the type of magical stuff happening every so often, but this I dare to call a vision. I accept it as such. Because they no longer have a body, it doesn't matter how many streams there are either. But since she is still holding two cups here, one golden one silver one, where there's milk and oil and blood, and we can see the spirals. Everything in this card is a spiral because the universe is a spiral. Yes, they knew that. And they are crystals. See that? It's all crystallized water or crystallized something. We can tie it to this card. Also two streams. And this card. Also two streams. Therefore, I see here that the people, the figures, they, I don't want to say decompose, but they fall apart, just like the tower is. Everything is destroyed, yet the essence is still there. So you are still there. Probably they're talking about a soul or something. And so your soul finds the water and it blends into the water, obviously. And you're trying to find a new form, a new body. But then there is Nuit in human form picking you up and transforming you. It's an alchemical process yet again. And then you find yourself in Atu 18, which is the moon card. And that is where you find yourself in between two worlds, the one of the dead or no longer here and the one of the living. You follow the golden path. Here the scarab is following or is holding the sun. It's finding its way to the horizon once more, and you find a new body on earth in your new life that you chose. This is starting to sound all starseed crap, but no, it's not what I'm talking about. I do actually believe in reincarnation. That is what I'm talking about. And I see that because you don't have to agree with me, absolutely not, but it's just one of those things that I feel fits into this story of the cosmic cards in the tarot, Or I didn't include the sun yet, but we have the tower where the destruction happens, the scary things, and then we're off into this astral plane where we no longer have a body. So it's star, moon, and then sun. There we are reborn. Yeah, I definitely see that transformed into maybe somehow a smaller being. I was going to say lesser being, but I don't want to think like that. A smaller being like a scarab or a crayfish, and then coming out of the water, and following that golden path to your new life. Of course, going through the watchtowers and being found worthy. There is death in the moon card, the suggestion of death, because we have Anubis here and they are holding the key between the worlds. So, between the worlds, it's the world of the living and the dead, I believe, or the awakened and unawakened. There's another thing I like about this thought is that because we actually at this point don't have a body, we are just something else, but we are still there. Our essence is still there. Because we fall into this big pool of water, which I see as the subconscious, unconscious, all the things, a different realm. And the water is healing and transforming and bringing us, you know, yeah, bringing us up to the surface yet again and finding this new shore where we have the choice to either go on or go back to this earthly realm that we know to start a new life. Because we don't have a body, we mix with the water. As I said in the beginning, mixing water with water, it's still water. And if you see that as your soul, and everybody goes through this at a certain point, everybody visits this place in one form or another at a certain point. If you have that as an idea, then this means that there is either just one soul or everybody's soul is the same. Either way, all souls are connected in this sense, because if the soul or the essence of a person is water, then this means that we are all this. We are all the same and we all blend and we are all the same people. So yet again, the tarot is giving this very important message of we are not separate. We are one. Why do we live here on earth as if we are against one another, as if we are separate from someone else? We are not. We are the same. We all come from the same place. We all go back to the same place. I mean, this might sound like mumbo jumbo to some folks, which I understand, but to me, this made sense. And it all just started with the question popping up in my head in the middle of the night of, why are there two streams of water? And then also two people falling from the tower. What does that mean? Because I showed you the Rider-Waite-Smith, this is my Centennial deck, cards so much. And this is that bird of freedom, which comes from this card, or these types of decks, I think. I want to show you the hoi polloi version. Here we don't have a bird about to fly off and symbolize freedom and the new life. We actually have a butterfly, which is something, a little detail, I noticed a few weeks ago. And I thought, that's charming, a butterfly. That's also transformation. Not realizing immediately that we also have butterflies in the Toth card. We have roses and butterflies. See that? So, I don't know if this was deliberate, but of course, butterfly transformation from a caterpillar to a butterfly. Let's read a bit of this Gerd Ziegler book, because Book of Toth does not acknowledge this, but here they are saying, let me get the cards. The butterflies, symbols of transformation, show us that our view on things will change and be freed from our ties to old conditioning. Hope I translated that well. Otherwise, it will be in the screen. Now, let me convince some of you to read Book of Toth. Come on, do it, guys. Either this is going to sound beautiful or annoying. It's one or the other. But here we go. Nuit. She is the Scarlet Woman, the Scarlet Harlot, who is the Lady of Atu 11. So, lust card. And then also we see Nuit again in the Toth deck in the Universe card, holding that snake. From this star, behind the celestial sphere itself, issue the curled rays of spiritual light. Heaven itself is no more than a veil before the face of the immortal goddess. I mean, come on, those are song lyrics. It will be seen that every form of energy in this picture is spiral. Also, the mathematical conception of the shape of the universe as calculated by Einstein and his school shows that it is a spiral. I am paraphrasing. It is only in the lower cup that the forms of energy issuing forth show rectilinear characteristics. In this may be discovered the doctrine which asserts that the blindness of humanity to all the beauty and wonder of the universe is due to this illusion of straightness. Have you ever heard of that? That the straight line doesn't actually exist. It's just a small part of yet another spiral. The straight line is no more than the limit of any curve. Doesn't that change or bring up a lot of understanding of how things work and come back to each other and what synchronicity truly means, or even karma? It was only because something that mathematicians began to conceive that the straight line had no true correspondence with reality. Okay, now this is Nuit speaking to us. I give unimaginable joys on earth, certainty, not faith, while in life upon death, peace unutterable, rest ecstasy, nor do I demand aught in sacrifice. But to love me is better than all things. So get ready for some sexual tension here. Anyway, that's just Crowley, isn't it? If under the night stars, in the desert, thou presently burnest mine incense before me, invoking me with a pure heart, and the serpent flame therein, thou shalt come a little to lie in my bosom. For one kiss wilt thou then be willing to give all, but whoso gives one particle of dust shall lose all in that hour. Ye shall gather goods and store of women and spices. Ye shall wear rich jewels. Ye shall exceed the nations of the earth in splendor and pride, but always in the love of me, and so shall ye come to my joy. I charge you earnestly to come before me in a single robe and covered with a rich headdress. I love you. I yearn to you. Pale or purple, veiled or voluptuous, I who am all pleasure and purple and drunkenness of the innermost sense desire you. Put on the wings and arouse the coiled splendor within you. Come unto me. At all my meetings with you shall the priestess say, and her eyes shall burn with desire as she stands bare and rejoicing in my secret temple. To me, calling forth the flame of the hearts of all in her love chant. Sing the rapturous love song unto me. Burn to me perfumes. Wear to me jewels. Drink to me, for I love you. I don't know, guys. Just go flying. Isn't that just beautiful and annoying, as I said? So, this was my theory about the two people and the two streams of the Tower and the Star card. So, leave me a comment. Let me know what you think of this. If you ever saw this written in a book, maybe I didn't actually think of this and this just was more like a memory from something I read, but doesn't feel like it. Feels like somehow my mind clicked all of these things into place and then made this whole thing of the cosmic cards of the tarot fit together like a puzzle. Okay, thank you so much for being here. I would love to hear what you have to say about all of this, and I will see you next week. Bye.